Now that it's starting to gain some traction in mainstream media, Donald Trump is now desperately trying to distance himself from Project 2025. I think Donald Trump's number one priority right now is to get himself reelected this November. So instead of owning up to the crazy proposals in Project 2025 and how they relate to Trump's personal political ambitions, he's just going to lie to the American people. So let's go ahead and take a look at what he had to say, and then look at some of the close connections between Trump's inner circle and the people actually creating Project 2025. And to kick things off, we'll go ahead and look at Trump's Truth Social post.
Trump does not want people to know about the entire vanguard of extremist weirdos around him and what their little plans are for when he governs. With the Project 2025 plans lying in plain sight, they are panicking in a comically preposterous and fraudulent way. Donald Trump posting today, I like this, he knows nothing about Project 2025 and has no idea who is behind it. Well, you could go to the website, it's got them all listed there.
This is classic Donald Trump, isn't it? Just pretend something doesn't exist in hopes that people won't remember in November the connection between Project 2025 and Donald Trump. The problem for Donald Trump is there are too many close connections between his inner circle and the people creating this agenda for us to look the other way. It should be no surprise to anybody. The Heritage Foundation has been creating their mandate for leadership, at least going back to the Reagan administration. But it's people from Trump's administration and former advisors to Trump that are actually creating the plan this time. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of those names and their connection to Donald Trump.
Chapter 1 on the White House office was written by Rick Dearborn, Trump's former White House Deputy Chief of Staff. Chapter 2 on the executive office of the President of the United States was written by Russell Vought, who is Trump's former director of the Office of Management and Budget. Chapter 3 on managing the bureaucracy was co-written by former advisor to Ronald Reagan, Donald Devine, along with Dennis Dean Kirk, a Trump nominee for the chair of the Merit Systems Protection Board, and Paul Dans, a Trump appointee to the U.S. Office of Personnel Management. Paul Dans is the director of all of Project 2025. Okay, Chapter 4 on the Department of Defense, written by Christopher Miller, who was Donald Trump's acting Secretary of Defense from November 2020 through the end of his term. Want me to keep going? Okay. Chapter 5 on the Department of Homeland Security, written by Ken Cuccinelli, Donald Trump's Secretary of Homeland Security. Chapter 6 on the Department of State, written by Kieran Skinner, the Director of Policy Planning for Donald Trump's State Department. Roger Severino, known to be aggressively anti-abortion rights and anti-LGBTQ plus rights, and who served as Donald Trump's Director of the Office of Civil Rights for the Department of Health and Human Services, well, he wrote the chapter on that department. Peter Navarro, who served as Trump's top trade advisor, he's currently in prison for contempt of Congress, authored part of the chapter on trade. The more you look in here, the more you find. If you look at the Heritage Foundation's website, you can see that the associate director of Project 2025 is a former special assistant to Donald Trump.
So that's quite a lot of names, right? These are people that have already worked in a Trump administration, and they are the same people that are likely to be put into positions of power in a second Trump term. And this is nothing new from Donald Trump. We saw this in 2020 when he sent out his minions to carry out the fake elector scheme. When they got caught, he was able to turn the other way and say, I don't know anything about that. And we're seeing the exact same thing here. Donald Trump, people close to him, are writing out this radical agenda, and now he's trying to distance himself from it by saying he doesn't know the people involved, he doesn't know what the plan is, and we cannot let him get away with it. We have to call this stuff out every time we see it. He even has people like David Urban going on CNN and running defense for him. Let's go ahead and see what he had to say.
These, though, are people who would be likely to have significant policy roles in the administration if Donald Trump is, in fact, reelected. How involved is he really?
Yeah, so the answer is zero. He's involved zero. And those people you put on the screen there, they're involved zero. This is being drafted. This Project 2025 is coming out of the Heritage Foundation, and they are clearly trying to assert, or they were trying to clearly assert some sort of role that they don't have, that I know from speaking to Chris LaCivita on the campaign. He retweeted out a piece on that. I know from speaking to him previously about this, and the former president, that they've disavowed this. Unless it comes from Donald Trump's mouth or the campaign, don't believe it. And so people are trying to be important in Washington. Everyone's trying to throw around their weight and say things that they shouldn't say. And Donald Trump just gave them a smackdown.
So why should I believe somebody like David Urban when we know that Trump is a pathological liar? And he's tried to carry out schemes like this before. They want us to believe that Trump has absolutely nothing to do with this. But I can point you to a list of names from Trump's inner circle that are responsible for creating Project 2025. That's not even to mention Trump's complete takeover of the Republican Party. It's just not even plausible that Trump has absolutely no idea about Project 2025. And we even have people like Kevin Roberts, president of the Heritage Foundation, one of the key architects to this extreme agenda, going out there and saying that the goal of Project 2025 is to institutionalize Trumpism. I mean, you can't even get any more clearer than that.
And so, is it tied to Trump or not?
I said the context for that comment to the New York Times was that the work of the Heritage Foundation was to institutionalize Trumpism. Trumpism as a new version of conservatism, a conservatism that recognizes that by every objective measure, the United States is weaker in 2024 than it was in 1984.
They weren't even trying to hide it. It wasn't until Americans started learning about how extreme Project 2025 was that Donald Trump started tucking his tail between his legs and saying he had no idea what it was. Americans do not want an authoritarian takeover of the United States. So Donald Trump has to disavow this because it is unpopular. It does not enjoy majority support. And his first priority is to be reelected in 2024. But we know that with these close connections between Trump's inner circle and Project 2025, that if he is to get reelected in 2024, this will be their agenda. So we got to call this stuff out every time we see it. We can't let them lie to the American people because their goal is to try to get people to forget about the connections before the November election. Because like I said, these are not popular ideas. They are extreme. They are radical. And it would be a complete shift of how we do governance here in the United States. So that's going to do it for me on this one, folks. If you got anything out of this video, if you could remember to smash that like button and hit subscribe, maybe share it with a friend or two, I'd very much appreciate that. If you think I got something wrong, or if you disagree with me about something, let's hash it out in the comments below. And if you want to learn why I think the Supreme Court is ruining America, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. And I will see you guys on the next one.